Now, like most of y'all, I've been watching over the last week or so the social media hellscape surrounding what's happening in Minneapolis. And more than anything, it's produced takes so hot that they'd probably refreeze my driveway. But I have been reminded of one of my New Year's resolutions for 2026. Well, okay, two of my resolutions. The first being more charitable in my disagreements, which I'm going to do my best to do in this video. But more importantly, cementing integrity in my daily life. Now, I'm not under the impression that I possess any sort of special insight, since this is, in my opinion, such an obvious pattern. And I don't want to belabor the current situation, since I'd rather focus on exploring a pattern of behavior that transcends any particular event. This is just the first one we get this year. So the question is, how often do we hyper-focus on one tree without taking the forest into account? Is it the cortisol-induced mad dash to signal our ideological loyalty? Probably, but
that's just the tip of this iceberg.
First, let's just get it out of the way that the loudest people on your timeline, specifically the people writing college-length essays on Facebook, or people that have stories that look like this, don't actually really care about politics unless their position can be used as a vehicle to virtue signal. Now, why is that? For the average American, tracing the foundational reason for any given political scandal is far less mentally stimulating than gossiping about who's sleeping with who on Love Island, or which sports team scored the most points this week, or whatever subliminal messages are being revealed on Taylor Swift's newest album. And honestly, it's not really reasonable to expect someone who can list every actress that's ever played Elphaba in Wicked to articulate the Monroe Doctrine, or make a realistic prediction of a long-term cultural effect on unrestricted economic migration. Though I'm not claiming any direct connection, I think it is worth mentioning that over half of the US population reads below a 6th grade level. And even for somebody like me that got their degree in musical theater, this would appear to have some effect on the state of political discourse. As an example, I don't expect anybody to take my opinion on halftime show Super Bowl seriously, because I don't listen to Bad Bunny, I don't really care about football, and my experience in marketing lends me to believe that most of this is probably manufactured outrage to increase ad revenue. So I just really don't have any interest in it. And because I've spent maybe 10 minutes on the subject to put together a thought for this video, I don't really have a rational reason to be offended if someone who's a pop culture aficionado doesn't find my opinion valuable. Now, I'm not saying that you should be silent about politics. I'm saying you should be realistic about the weight your opinion carries. Having to habitually backpedal in the face of new evidence doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you're probably more susceptible to propaganda than you'd like to believe. And having to think on your feet isn't so bad in improv class, but it's not a great default strategy to rationalize whatever the slogan is that you saw on TikTok. And this isn't to say there aren't downsides to having a genuinely formed opinion, especially if it ends up being considered heterodox by the sloganeers. While you get to release having to rely on mental gymnastics to articulate your worldview, being intellectually rigorous is not for the faint of heart. Some of your friends will unfollow and block you. It's just going to happen. And sometimes it's because they disagree with you, and sometimes it's because you're articulating a point that runs totally anathema to their worldview in a way that they can or just won't engage with. This has always been a tough pill for me to swallow, regardless of the stage in life that it happens in. So much so that I wrote a song about it, and it still is one of my favorites, probably because it's always so relevant when you have a personality like mine. Finally, let's take a moment to look at the philosophical glue that holds this storm together. And it can be explained almost entirely by two studies that I came across this past weekend while we were snowed in. The first one is a study that was published in 2025 called The Susceptibility Paradox in Online Social Influence. In this study, researchers found that people who are more easily influenced online tend to cluster together, reinforcing the same narratives until they feel like a consensus. In short, what looks like organic agreement is actually just influence compounding inside of tightly connected networks. So it's not a reflection of independent thought. The second comes from a 2006 study by researchers at the University College of London called Empathic Neural Responses Are Modulated by the Perceived Fairness of Others. Why do they choose such long names for these things? This study showed that empathy is conditional by nature, and subjects felt a strong sense of empathy when fair individuals experienced pain, but that empathy dropped when the person was perceived as unfair. In men especially, seeing someone judged as unfair suffer even activated reward centers in the brain. This would suggest that punishment can feel emotionally satisfying, but when it seems justified. These studies explain why online discourse escalates so fast with so little verification. Influence spreads through networks. Empathy is filtered through a predetermined narrative. And once a group decides who deserves compassion and who deserves punishment, those narratives harden and context disappears, and then anyone questioning the hive mind is primed for removal.
Shun the non-believer! Shun!
And look, for my friends who still work in the corporate art scene, I completely understand why thinking independently about sensitive topics is potentially career-ending. I mean, I was in the game when the Jussie Smollett incident happened, and we all know how that ended. So if you hold any viewpoints that deviate from whatever is corporately acceptable, it's probably best to keep them to yourself for the time being. And if you're not sure what those viewpoints are, you can consult the AEA social media accounts that, as of lately, are currently more dedicated to everything other than ensuring stage actors receive a livable wage. What is the point of all this? Your word is only as valuable as the level of intellect or ignorance that you choose to support it with. So maybe in 2026, we give ourselves permission to use the brain God has blessed us with to create a worldview that's more than just the sum of the entertainment we consume. Till next time, peace be with you.
You as well.
That's hilarious.